So question 5, is the beast a government or a religious power? Well, this one ends up being both. First of all, you know that it's using force, so it must have some civil power, but it's definitely involved in worship, for it says, he causes as many as would not what? Not worship. Is that civil or religious? The image of the beast would be killed. Now, these words that we're looking at right now come almost directly out of the story in Daniel chapter 3, where King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon tells everybody they need to either fall down and worship the golden image that he set up or be killed. They're going to go to the fiery furnace. And of course, there are 3 brave Hebrews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they say, even if we lose our jobs, even if we lose our lives, we are not going to break that commandment that says, you shall not make unto you any graven image of anything, the likeness in the heaven above, or the earth beneath, or the water under the earth, and bow down and serve them. And they said, we can't do that. Oh, but you'll lose your job, you'll lose your life. They said, it's a commandment of God. And the commandments were so important. What if that idol had started speaking? That's what's interesting about what's happening in Revelation. Stay with me. So it has to do with a law regarding worship. It's obvious also it's a civil power, and I think I mentioned to you last night, it came out pretty clearly. In 2014, the Pope plays a major role in resolving the 50-year U.S.-Cuba standoff. And just before we began this meeting here, our president, for the first time in, I think, over 50 years, U.S. president, went and began dialogue and reached across the Caribbean there with Cuba, what is still outwardly a communist country. It's very interesting. This was facilitated by the Pope. You're going to find out a little later that that's not the only time it's happened. What power will support the beast in the end time? Here's where it gets interesting, friends. Revelation 13, when you talk about the mark of the beast or the beast in Revelation 13, you realize that's a misnomer. The way you should say it is the beasts of Revelation 13, because there's more than one. If you look in Revelation 13:11, it says, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. Now, the first beast comes up out of the sea. This beast comes up out of the earth. And he has 2 horns like a lamb. Question, is a lamb a good thing or a bad thing in Revelation? What did John the Baptist say about Jesus? Behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. Lamb's good. 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon. Question, is the dragon a good thing or a bad thing in Revelation? Bad thing. So it starts out sounding good. Like a lamb, ends up like a dragon. Now, what is this second beast in Revelation? I believe it represents North America, more specifically the United States. You notice when that time period that we looked at, it reached from 538, who remembers that number? 1,260 years from 538 comes to 1798. We already told you what was happening in Europe, what was happening over here, 1798. The United States declared its independence in when? 1776. It voted the Constitution in 1787. It adopted the Bill of Rights in 1791 and was finally recognized by the other major empires and countries as a separate world power in 1798. The reason it says this second beast rose up out of the earth is because compared to the teeming multitudes in Europe, this was a vast wilderness. There were still millions of people here, but it was comparatively very sparsely populated. And with the massive immigrations that came from England and Spain and the Netherlands to the New World and Portugal, things changed very quickly. And because of some of the diseases they brought, they nearly wiped out, in some cases they did wipe out entire tribes. And there was a great change that took place. Now, it used to be that the beachhead for Christianity, believe it or not, was once in Rome. Where did Paul go to preach? Rome. There's a book in the Bible. What's it called? Romans. Rome at one time was a good place. Christians were faithful there. Peter died there. The church was devoted, dedicated. But once it became accepted, they started becoming lukewarm, and it drifted from there. And it slowly, over the ages, it moved up into the Alps. So you had the Waldenses and the Albigenses, and later the Hussites, and moved into France, and there was a revival there. And then Germany with Luther and the Reformation. It went across the English Channel, and you had John Wesley and George Whitefield, and then they went across the Atlantic. Wesley and Whitefield were evangelists, actually, in North America. And the Pilgrims came to this country seeking religious freedom from the persecution in Europe. And you almost see the gospel going around the world, kind of like the sun. But those places where the gospel was so strong, go to Germany today. There are some good Christians here, but I'll tell you, friends, most of those churches are closed. I've been there. Go to England today. Go to France. Karen and I were in France, a month ago? There's a lot of mosques. But you can go to Notre Dame. We went while we were there. And just tourists. Not a lot happening. Christianity is dying in a lot of that part of the world. It's shifted to the U.S. And it's actually going now across the ocean. We did a series in China a couple of years ago, and the gospel is just exploding over there. The dedication, the sacrifice, the persecution, it's like what we once had. It's changing. But those who had it, they take it for granted. Revelation chapter 3 says they become lukewarm. It is so hard to do what we're doing here right now in Charlotte, in France, or in England, or in Germany, or in Switzerland. I've been there. We've had some good crowds, but there is so much atheism over there. But Islam's growing. Do you think it's an accident that the Pope came to America and spent so much time over here? Or that they chose a Pope from South America? Because they're losing their ground, they're losing their beachhead in Europe, and they're looking to places where they can form allegiances.